It. All right, and welcome, folks. Today is, I think now, June 23rd, 2022. I'm very pleased today on the Living Longer, Stronger podcast, Living Your Best Life After Age 40, to have someone who's graciously agreed to spend a little bit of time with us, Blain Duesing from Florida. Blain is a former high school teacher, and he's recently relocated to Florida in the last couple of years. Now he's working as an exercise instructor, training clients, and also has on social media, I know that he has a hit page or a group, I believe, that
Correct.
contributes with various people in the community. And just chatting before we started the recording, I realized we have an awful lot of commonalities. We have a lot of common acquaintances and whatnot. So I'm looking forward to getting to know Blain better today. So Blain, maybe a little bit of background. You mentioned before that the hit thing came after making a few mistakes. How did you come to work or use high intensity training as your preferred method of fitness?
Yeah, great question. So I dove in, I want to say in my mid 20s. I decided to get in shape. I was at the time just very skinny. I was drinking way too much alcohol. I was a former smoker, smoked a pack or two a day, and just kind of wanted to dive right in. So I made every single monumental mistake that you could possibly make. I got a home gym with just about everything in it, a pull down, chest press, leg press, overhead press, preacher curl, all the stuff that you need. Except I made the mistake of going to Barnes and Noble and purchasing the Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding by Arnold Schwarzenegger. In addition to, I think back then they had both publications of Muscle and Fitness and Flex magazine. So I subscribed to those, and as you know, was inundated by BS on a monthly basis of what I should be doing. And so when I first dove in, I was a high school teacher at the time, so I would wake up probably at 4:30 in the morning to do at least 30 to 45 minutes of fasted cardio, which we know is a complete waste of time. And then I just had a typical stupid bro split of doing anywhere from 20 to 25 sets a day. Monday I would do chest, Tuesday I would do back, Wednesday I would do legs, Thursday I would do shoulders, Friday I would do arms, Saturday I'd probably pull a double cardio session. And that rendered me, after probably a year and a half of that, of feeling absolutely horrible. That rendered me with multiple shots of cortisone in my elbows for lateral epicondylitis or tennis elbow. My shoulders ached, my hips ached, my legs ached. I felt absolutely horrible. And I just thought there had to be a better way to do this than spending such, a wasted amount of time on a daily basis of just beating the crap out of myself. And I was just in a Barnes and Noble. I forget what year Darden's book came
And
out.
you said you did that for 2 years, about roughly?
Yeah, about a year and a half or 2 years. And I was just nothing but rendered injuries. My physique did not respond well at all. I was just beat down. I was always tired. I always felt ill. And, I just thought, well, maybe more is better. Everything, that philosophy of doing more is better. And I just kept kicking the crap out of myself. And I was in Barnes and Noble one day, and it was like right after January 1st. So they had like this table of all new releases. And it wasn't just the fitness section, but I saw the big white book that was written by Dr. Darden, said the new high intensity training with Andy, the Bowflex guy, on the cover of that. And I didn't even really look at it. I just purchased it thinking it, what the hell. And I went home and pretty much in a day or two read it cover to cover, thinking to myself that this has to be absolute BS. There's no way this can work, because this guy is advocating for a 25 to 30-minute workout once every 3 to 5 days. This has got to be garbage. So I think in those, if I remember correctly, those first editions back then, I think Dr. Darden actually put his email in that book. And I remember being at work during my lunch break, and I emailed him a couple questions, and maybe 3 to 5 minutes went by, and he fired right back, which was very nice. And we started this little correspondence of question and answer. And it got to the point where he emailed something to the effect of, hey, if you just want to come out to Florida and have me train you and spend the day, come on out. And I was like, well, absolutely. I'm going to take him up on that offer. So I got a plane ticket, got a little hotel room, flew out to Dr. Darden's house. and it was a great experience. He was very, very kind. He spent maybe an hour or two with me just talking in his office, met his wife and his son. He put me through, to this day, one of the most intense training sessions I've been through, because before that, I started doing, once I read his book, The One Set to Failure, but I was doing it incorrectly, as most do, after just taking common knowledge from a book and trying to apply it without any coaching. But he kicked my butt, and his wife made us.
What year would that have been?
Oh God, it had to be back in 2008, 2009, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, after that, his wife made us sandwiches. I spent the whole day with him. He stayed in touch with me via phone call and email for probably kind of 3 to 5 months after that. And then unfortunately, we just kind of lost touch. And, if you got any viewers or out there or anybody, if there is one more thing I would like to do now that I live in Florida, is train with him one more time, just so he can see that somebody that's been doing this for 15 years, just based off of finding his book in a Barnes and Noble one day and how much of a big impact it has made. I would seriously love to do that, but I have absolutely no way or how to get a hold of him these days, because I think he's retired and I don't think he does much anymore as far as
I,
the.
I have his email address. I'll share it with you after.
Yeah, that'd be wonderful. I would love to go out to his place one more time, just so we could see the monumental change from 15, 18 years ago as to how far I've come. And I would love that. That'd be fun.
Yeah, cool.
So that's kind of got me into it. And then through just kind of, once I trained with Darden, I dove into all the hit stuff. I bought all the Mike Menser stuff, Fred Hahn's books, anybody that had anything to do with slow training. I read it all and kind of dove into this community where we now have, like you said before we started this interview, a big group of, like-minded people that, I am blessed to be able to talk to every day, no matter what. So now I have people like Drew Bay, Jay Vincent, Doug Simmons, Eric Ramos, Mike Lawler, all on a group text every day, and we can just share ideas or get a talk going. And it's very cool to have a majority of these people in Florida now that I live here. So it's been good.
So, what does your clientele look like? Is there a certain demographic, or is it spread all over type of thing?
No, I have one client that's actually younger than me. I'm in my mid 40s. He's in his late 30s, but most of my clients, being in Naples, Florida, are in their 60s.
Okay. And so that's one of the things and it would seem that, as you may have heard Doug McGuff say in various interviews, that when he first started, he visualized himself training athletes and sports figures and young people and whatnot, and then quickly discovered, for whatever reason, this type of training tends to appeal to older people, which is sort of ironic. And I attribute that sometimes that maybe the younger people figure they already know what they're doing, and they're quote unquote getting away with what they're doing so far. And of course, if they're genetically blessed, then they're probably getting results either way. So they're not really looking to do something different. So now with you, how do people find you? Is it mostly word of mouth, or do you advertise? Do you promote yourself in some way?
Yeah, I don't do any advertising. I'm blessed that, Naples, Florida is an older demographic as far as the community. Most people are retired and word of mouth travels fast. So for the first time, my wife and I live in a community that has a homeowners association, and we have a very small gym there. But before I got the gym membership at the gym I prefer to work out at, I was training at our HOA gym. And I would have people just approach me and ask me, be like, you know what, I've never seen anyone lift that slowly. Or they'll say things like, I've never seen anybody lift that heavy of weight that slowly for that long. Can you explain to me what you're doing?
Right.
And it got to the point where I joined the fitness committee of my HOA. And right now I do a once a month free, it's like the third Wednesday of the month, whatever it is, at 10 a.m. I'll go into our weight room, and they send out an email blast to all the residents here, and I'll do a free seminar on how to properly use each piece of equipment, in addition to doing like a 30-minute Q&A, and I will answer anything pertaining to any question they have, whether it's exercise related, nutrition related, sleep related, anything. And that has kind of taken my clientele list pretty well, because people know I'm in the community, they know I'm actively involved, and ever since I've built up this clientele list, I've had, Facebook testimonials from people in their 60s saying they were getting better results in a quarter of the time and they're never injured. And that is what I think, sets off the light bulb in people's head versus what I do versus a traditional trainer at any other gym is going to do.
Well, one of the things interesting when you told me about your background is that you did it the other way for a year and a half, and,
Yeah,
and you hung in there.
I was an idiot.
Well, the one thing though, and I think what's tragic is that many people will soon get injured, or simply not be able to practically, maintain that the requirement of that much time commitment and things like that, and simply not stick with it. And one of the things that I say to people on the first appointment is I say, why aren't more people exercising? And typically comes with a finger wagging, right? Saying you should make time and you should make excuses. You shouldn't make excuses, rather. But what I think is that there's valid reasons why most people don't exercise. Is that very few people can really stick to that time commitment, much longer than their New Year's resolution motivation gets them through. And then they wind up hurting themselves very often, and then they give it up and they go on to do nothing. Whereas you hung in there long enough to discover a better way. So kudos to you for that. And so hopefully not long enough that any of your injuries have come back to haunt you since.
No, absolutely not. I have not been injured with anything serious since that in like probably 12 years. Nothing ever hurts. I feel amazing. The day after a workout, I'm pleasantly sore in the morning, but it doesn't hinder me from doing anything out of my lifestyle. And I just feel amazing because of it. And I'm going to continue to train this way and help other people train this way, probably for the rest of my life. I couldn't imagine me veering off at this point going, I'm going to try volume again. Like I know exactly where that gets me.
Well, that's the other thing is one of the things that I think is there are a lot of ways to get in shape. My guess is that first year and a half, you probably got significantly stronger than when you first started. But I always, Doug McGuff uses the analogy of pharmaceuticals. He uses the idea of the therapeutic window and
narrow through therapeutic window. Yeah.
Yeah, and one of the things to carry that analogy a little further is drugs have a therapeutic effect and they have side effects. And there are many types of fitness programs that I think have some therapeutic effect, but with a large dose of side effects to go with it.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, there is that narrow therapeutic window. And I think the mistake a lot of people make are thinking that you have to go, just dive into the deep end and keep going and going. And a lot of people might actually start off on a decent program, but the fact that they're doing it 5 to 6 to 7 times a week and they're not recovering properly, they end up getting injured. Whereas had they only done it 3 days a week, they probably could have done it for the rest of their lives with continued success.
Right. So what is your personal program? Do you train once a week, twice a week?
You know what? My personal training program has gotten so redundantly boring, and it's gotten redundantly boring because I know damn well that in my mid-40s, being a natural trainee, I am most likely at 99.5% of my genetic potential.
Right.
Like I'm a very tall guy. I'm 6'5", but I fluctuate between 235 to 240 pounds, which is pretty big for a tall man. But I don't think anything different that I do at this point is going to, equate to any sort of monumental size increase that would be me worth changing anything. So I train whenever I'm ready to train. So typically I don't do any more than 2 days a week. I'll generally I train today only because I would have taken today off too, but I'm going on a week-long vacation tomorrow and I'm not going to do anything for the next 8 days other than relax with family and hang out. So there'll be no training for the next 7 to 8 days. And the old me would have been worried about losing muscle mass. I won't lose anything. I might come back bigger actually.
Right.
But typically I'll go into the gym and I do the big 5. I'll do a pull down, a chest press, a row, an overhead press, and the leg press. And then whatever I have left in the tank, If I have anything left, I'll pepper in a bicep curl, a tricep push down, maybe some calf work. But traditionally, from start to finish, my workouts last me anywhere from 22 to 28 minutes at the very most. Like today, I think I walked into the gym at 9 a.m. I put my stuff away in the locker room. I was walking out by 9:35, and that was after filling my water bottle, I'm in and out in 30 minutes. You can't beat that for,
Right.
return on
Right.
investment. But yeah, I don't do anything crazy, usually the big five. And then whatever I have left in the tank, I'll pepper in some small stuff.
So your clients that are in their 60s and beyond, there's much change from what you're doing.
No, it doesn't change at all. I typically have everybody I train do the big five. And if they have anything left, we can throw in a bicep curl, a tricep push down. Their workouts are the exact same that I do, pretty much. I mean, obviously with significantly less weight, but I have them trained very slowly in 8-8 to 10-10 speed. And they are out the door in 25 to 30 minutes. And they couldn't be happier with that, 2 times a week. And none of my clients train any more than 2 times a week.
Okay, so that sounds very similar to what I do. Now, are your clients, do they partake? And where I'm going with this is, I have some clients who are getting older, and well, most of them are, and they participate in other activities. And I encourage people to stay relatively active in between. But some of the things, you get people who, one time somebody said, my knees, I'm not sure if my knees bother me a little bit after that leg press session the other day. And I'll say, well, what have you done since?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I went dancing and I played pickleball.
Yeah,
and
it wasn't the leg press.
Yeah, well, the leg press, you might have felt it there, but also after years. And of course, one of the things I found is I don't want to take away from people the things that they love to do. Do you know what I mean? But I want to say, if you want to keep doing it into your 70s, your 80s and beyond, then you should do less of it. You know what I mean? Like if you're going to play pickleball, maybe, and I'm guessing if you're working in a senior's place, pickleball seems to be the recent sort of a bit of a craze among seniors. A lot of people are playing that.
Yeah, pickleball, tennis, golf. Basically, I'll tell you exactly what I tell my clients. I say, if there's anything that you enjoy doing, go do it. But just please, for the love of God, don't run. I said, if you enjoy swimming, go swim. If you enjoy biking, go bike. If you enjoy walking, go walk. Go do anything you want to do that's not going to be a hindrance on your joints and cause more damage than good. And the only thing I do tell them is I said, please don't ever skip strength training, because in my opinion, that is the most important thing. If you're going to skip something, skip a walk day, skip a bike day, skip a swim day, skip a tennis day, but don't ever skip your strength training session, because the benefits you're going to get from that far outweigh any walk you're going to go do or 10 laps you're going to go swim.
Right. Well, the other thing too, and I would guess that your experience has been the same as mine and many other trainers, is that people tend to stay with you for a long time. There's not the incredible turnover that is the case in most gyms, where people start and stop because they don't get hurt and because they don't are able to meet the time commitment because it's unreasonable for them. Has that been your experience as well?
Yeah. So when I first got into this, I talked to Doug Simmons a lot anyway, but he's got obviously way more clients than I do, and he's been doing it for far longer than I have. So obviously I go to him for advice, and his advice was pretty spot on accurate. He said, you're going to have 50% of the clients, they're going to stay for about 4 to 8 sessions. And then they realize it's hard work and they're going to have to do it forever, and they quit. And the other 50% will be with you for the rest of your life. And that seems to be where I'm at right now, because I've had about 30 to 40, and I've got the 20 that just stay with me, and I guess will be with me for an extended period of time, if not their entire lifetime.
That's interesting. I haven't had any, that's not true. I was about to tell a lie. I've had one person leave. They didn't give that as the reason, but I suspect strongly that it was because it was too hard. and they didn't enjoy it. I know at one point they said, for me, it's got to be fun. And
Well,
right
this
away,
isn't
that's
fun.
a red flag. Well,
Yeah, this is
I think there's a sense of, I don't know, the word fun would be the wrong word, but I think there's a sense of fulfillment that people get from pushing themselves to their limits. I think it's a feeling of accomplishment and a sense of fulfillment that people will get from doing this. But again, not fun in the, let's all dance around with some music playing and do
no.
that type of thing, but type of thing.
No, yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, it is a very, very, as you know, difficult workout. And I'm not going to lie and say I enjoy the workout process. The workout in and of itself is self-imposed torture if you do it correctly. However, the way I feel for hours after a workout and the way I get to feel every day feeling good and strong, the return on investment for that minimal 30 minutes of lactic acid induced pain is worth all of the benefits that it gives you.
Yeah. Well, one thing I'd like to commend you for, and you mentioned about, 8 seconds, 8 to 10 seconds up, 8 to 10 seconds down, is I find that some people in the HIIT community seem to have got the intensity part well, but when I look at some of the form of the way some of the people are doing it, and I kind of wince a little bit because I I think sometimes, especially with the older clients, but even other people, that not only I think there's an element of danger that creeps into it, but also that they're not loading the muscles nearly as effectively as they could be if they were slowing down a little bit. Do you see that? I was just looking. It's interesting you brought up Doug Simmons. I just commented on one of his Facebook posts, and I you know I don't know if you saw, he just posted it, rows. He's doing some rows, and the man has an incredible back. His form is impeccable, but he plays that rap music during it. So I sort of I ribbed him a little bit. It says, "Great physique, great form, music, not so much." So, but I see a lot of other people, and the form is somewhat, and of course they go under the banner. And I'd like to say, you know, slow it down a little bit, right, and be a little bit more careful. But I guess people get caught up in the intensity part of it and leave
Yeah,
out
no,
the
I
safety
find
part.
that too. A lot of the videos I watch are deplorable. And the only reason my form and intensity is as good as it is now is because I had excellent people to show me in person how to do it correctly. And I think had I just read the books and continued to try to do it on my own, I still might be way out in left field versus having, been blessed enough to train with Ellington Darden and Jay Vincent and Doug Simmons and hopefully Drew Bay next. And, Drew's nice enough to I love his video I think it's something like, your form sucks and what to do about it. And he puts it on these people's posts. And I'm sure it can come off as derogatory, but it's a great video and he's right.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, some people, and of course, Drew, as you know, is heavily influenced by Ken Hutchins. And some of the critiques I've heard of Ken is, people aren't made out of China, and you don't have to be quite that careful, and things like that. But many of the people that come to me are older people who have never done any kind of strength training. But any of the people that I come that have a background in any kind of exercise, not most, not some, not most, every single one has injuries to show for it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Like not, everybody has had wear and tear. And what I find ironic is, you hear about if people don't exercise, they won't age well, and they'll have problems with atrophy, and they'll lose functional ability as they get older. But the irony I find is that many of the people who drank the Kool-Aid and stuck with the program and continued to jog or do these various things, I don't think they're headed for a much better old age, because they may have a certain amount of muscle strength or aerobic fitness or whatever that means, but they got their joints and everything else are going to be, in terrible shape as they get old. I mean, they're already in terrible shape now. And I'm thinking, what's this going to look like when you're in your 60s and 70s and whatnot?
Yeah, it's not going to go in the other direction and get better by any stretch of the imagination.
Well, one of the things that I forget who it was, but I was saying, if you're doing an exercise or a mode of exercise that you know you will not be doing in your 50s, 60s, and 70s, why are you doing it now?
Yeah, exactly. And I tell my clients the exact same workout that you're doing now, you'll be able to do 15 or 20 years from now. And I'll be exercising the exact same way, maybe with more or less weight, but I'm not going to, just the data points of how my life has improved since discovering this method of training has been an enormous success. And I wouldn't deviate from that course, obviously.
You mentioned sources of misinformation. You talked about the muscle magazines and some of the
Oh, God.
books written by champion bodybuilders and things like that. But what are your thoughts on when people think of fitness, they naturally look to professional or Olympic athletes as being the epitome of fitness because, of course, they have gold medals or they have championships to their names and things like that. And I think that in itself is a huge source of confusion for people.
It is because they need to be educated. And I think it was Doug McGuff that did a bunch of videos on how it's not the activity that makes these athletes. These athletes choose these activities because they're already genetically that way. And I think it was him or somebody else that said something to the effect of, it was pretty funny, like Shaquille O'Neal isn't 7'2", 350 pounds because he plays basketball. He plays basketball because he's 7'2", 350 pounds. Michael Phelps doesn't look that way because he swims. He swims because he looks that way. You put Michael Phelps on an NFL field, he's going to get destroyed. It's not applicable. But people say silly things like, oh, well, I want a swimmer's body. Well, the swimmers had that body before they swam.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and there's the other thing too is the evidence you see and the evidence you don't see, or sometimes referred to as the hidden graveyard, which is, for every Michael Phelps, how many thousands of other people wound up first of all, not kind of being nearly as successful, trying to mimic it, or I would think, because by most standards, Michael Phelps is hugely overtrained, and
absolutely.
whether he succeeds despite his training or simply he's just so genetically gifted that he's one in a million that can actually benefit from that is one thing. But how many people will look to him, try to mimic it, and really burn themselves down to the ground? And
you also have to take into consideration that these high-level athletes are generally in their early to mid-20s at the most. So nothing they're going to do has any applicability to anybody 35 or over anyway.
Right. And also the stats is that athletes, when they do retire, often go through the rest of their lives with all types of aches and pains. I heard a stat, and you correct me if you know, because this is hearsay, but I understand that NFL football players' life expectancy is only about 60 on average.
Yeah, I've heard it's 60 to 65. I mean, that seems a bit of a stretch, but I'm sure the statistic had to come from somewhere. But I mean, those guys take a beating. I mean, you think every hit that those guys take is the equivalent of a head-on accident. These are 250-pound, 300-pound men running into each other at full force time and time again. And I'm sure in the locker room or whatever they're doing, they're taking massive amounts of pain pills or whatever they're doing to mask that pain so they can go out and make their $1 million checks, and they don't care what they're doing to their body. And most of them, none of them are going to be a Tom Brady, a Peyton Manning. They're going to retire well before that 40-year mark. And then what do these guys do from 40 to 80? Typically they overeat, and a lot of them end up becoming morbidly obese. Right.
Yeah. Well, apparently somebody, there was a captain of the local hockey team here, Alfredson, was a sort of a local. I'm in Ottawa here, so this guy was a bit of a god here, and he retired a few years ago. Great hockey player, and somebody said they saw him the other day, and he weighs about 280 pounds now. So it's it's kind of a sad situation for a lot of these
Yeah, like I
guys.
don't know. I grew up watching 90s basketball, the Jordan era, and I was watching a baseball game the other day, and Sean Kemp from the Seattle Supersonics came out and to throw the first pitch, and I didn't even recognize him. He looked like he had to be 320 pounds. It was unbelievable.
Yeah. So
Crazy.
now, so fitness, and that's the other thing. And I posted something the other day: is short-term thinking. People want to get fit for their daughter's wedding. They want to get fit to go on the beach. Or if they are participating in a sport, they're trying to be fit to win the next championship or for their next event. But people don't think in terms of, I want to be fit so that I don't ever have to use a walker.
Yeah.
So that I'm able to play with my grandkids and go golfing in my 70s.
Yeah,
So,
like I'm you and I we're probably fit year round. I think I hover between maybe 12 to 15% body fat on any given day. At 6'5", I'm 233, 235 pounds. I look good every day. I feel good every day. And this is all with less than 1 hour of training time per week.
right.
Most people are spending more per day than we do per week, and we get better results.
Well, and even if, to play the devil's advocate, so let's say that somebody could convince you that if you went from an hour a week to 4 hours a week, that you would do better, right? And let's even assume here that you could actually get away with that without joint issues and things like that. The
Which
question
would be
is,
an impossibility, but okay.
exactly. But the question would be, how much better, if
Exactly.
at all, right? It would be well, first of all, I think you and I both agree that you'd probably do worse.
Oh, absolutely.
But even if it was, again, to give the devil his due, if you will, the difference would be really minimal, right? In
Yeah,
terms of,
extremely minimal. And like, are you willing to go out there and kill yourself for another 16th of an inch on your bicep? And if so, why? Who cares?
well, I interviewed, so I'm going to have Jeff, the guy from Casebolt. I feel
From
like
where? I'm sorry.
from the guy one of the partners who has the gluteator, the Dynavet
Oh, okay.
gluteator.
Yeah.
And one of the things he said to me, and I don't know where he got his stat from, so I can't vouch or whatever, but he said only 15% of Americans get the required amount of activity. Now, I that 10,000 step thing, which I don't put much stock in. But he said only 6% of Americans strength train. And I thought, but then he said, and half of those people have an unhealthy relationship with the gym.
I believe it.
I.e., and my dad, I asked him to elaborate on that, and it was like, they're obsessed. They have, what's the term, dysmorphia or whatever.
Body
People,
dysmorphia.
body dysmorphia, where they're constantly worried about getting an extra quarter inch on their biceps or whatever. And in a worst case scenario, using drugs to get there, which is the antithesis of health, doing it for health, right?
Yeah.
So I
Exactly.
once knew a guy that had hepatitis C from previous drug use,
Okay.
and he was taking steroids. And he went to his doctor, and we're recording, so I won't repeat the actual expletive, but his doctor actually said to him, "Are you effing nuts?"
Yeah.
And I remember, and he said, "Your liver is already sick, and you're taking steroids."
Yeah.
And I remember joking with him, sort of a bittersweet joke. I said, people are going to be going by your coffin at your funeral, and they're going to say, "Ooh, look at the pipes on that guy."
Yeah. Unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, I've never been inclined to ever take any performance enhancing drugs. Next month is my first, I got a, primary physician meeting with a doctor to get some blood work. And this is the first time in my life I'm going to actually ask to have my testosterone levels checked, because I'm not even worried about it, but I've never even had them checked.
Yeah. I had mine checked a little while ago, and people had talked about testosterone replacement therapy.
Yeah, the TRT.
Yeah, which, is just a fancy way of taking steroids legally. As far as I'm concerned, with all due respect for people who do that. But I just thought after that conversation, I would be curious to know. And I was told that for my age group, my testosterone is just fine. Thank you. And matter of
Yeah, I'm
fact,
sure mine's going to be fine. Like I've never had any, I don't lack sleep. I get enough vitamin D. I eat very well. Like I always feel great. I couldn't imagine it coming back with any negative number, but I'm just curious as to what it is.
one of the things that I'm going to stop short of saying come to the conclusion, but I'll suspect strongly is that hypertrophy of a significant amount is relatively rare among regular people, right? The kind of muscles that will, really get people to notice you. Now, strength, I don't know if you remember reading, Arthur Jones used to say the average untrained person can triple his starting level of strength. But then he would say, he would follow up, that's a different thing, but only increase their recovery ability by about 50%.
Yeah.
And so that was the basis for why, as you got stronger and bigger, that you should train less, not more. But I think you can triple your strength, but I don't think that people can put on significant amounts of muscle. Most people. Some people will, but most people can get quite strong. And maybe if they're lean and they're not wearing a tight t-shirt, or you notice they lift weights. But if they're just wearing a suit and tie or a regular sweater or whatever, most people won't even know that they lift weights. With the clientele that you're training at 60, you're seeing people, I'm going to guess, and correct me, get significantly stronger, but are you seeing significant muscle hypertrophy?
No, not in their 60s. But I think the biggest takeaway is the things that I get to hear from them, because they'll come to me with joint or mobility issues that after training with me completely disappear. And the second thing is they'll tell me that regular day-to-day things that they weren't able to do, they are
Right.
now able to do easily. And like one example is one of my trainees texted me one time and said she was in the grocery store and typically she would bend down with both legs and use both hands to grab a bag of 30 to 40 pound cat food. And she didn't even think about it. And she was passing it and she picked it up with one arm and just threw it in the cart. And she was like, holy cow, I've never done that. And I said, yeah, because you're significantly stronger. But again, these aren't people that are trying to actively, walk around in a tight shirt or enter a bodybuilding competition or
Right.
anything of that. They were doing it because they were at their last resort and they didn't think anything else worked, or they had previous personal trainers that were having them do idiotic things. And, the gym that I currently choose to train at, every single time they got a staff of about 4 or 5 personal trainers. 2 are older gentlemen with gigantic pot bellies, and 3 of them are kids that look to be maybe 21 years old. And the things that they have these people do are so nonsensical. And obviously I can't step in as a random patron and interrupt. And the only reason I really train there is because they have fantastic hammer strength equipment. Otherwise I wouldn't go, but I like their equipment. But I mean, the things I see in the gym, and I post a lot of it on my Facebook page I'll put my training and then, the most ridiculous thing I saw today. But you see ridiculous things all the time. And it's a shame, actually, because people are just getting their money taken and wasting their time.
Well, I had a client, she moved to another province recently, but she was with me for over 2 years, once or twice a week. And she used to go to a personal trainer that had her going 3 to 5 days a week for like an hour and a half,
Horrible.
and charging her. So she was paying, a lot of money.
Yeah, $500 a month at the minimum, probably.
Yeah, like a lot of money and whatnot. So, but that is unfortunately the norm. It's interesting that in some ways, technology-wise, we're advanced, and exercise. Forget now, because I've done podcasts with a few people here, but I think might have been Doug McGuff. You watched that podcast where he said, "This is where we've come to in our technology." Oh yeah, I think it was Doug. He said, back in the 70s and the 80s, you had Arthur Jones with these sophisticated, amazing machines, and now we've come all the way to hammering tires with sledgehammers.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. Yeah, the tire hitting and the tire flipping and the CrossFit is just a guaranteed 100% chance of injury. And it mind boggles me that people can still do it. It's unbelievable.
So now tell me about where do you see your business going? Do you do you have a certain aspiration to hire other trainers to work with you? Or you just continue to do it one-on-one?
I mean, right now I'm one-on-one. Ideally, in a perfect world, I would love to open my own studio. That being said, the rent prices in Naples, Florida are so out of control, ridiculous, that I would have to book, 80 to 100 sessions a week just to make overhead, and it wouldn't even be worth my time.
Right.
I mean, ideally, I would love to work in a high intensity training studio just as a trainer.
Right.
Unfortunately, they have a very small handful of them, and I'm not going to name the people or the businesses, but we did have a couple of them that I worked for an extended period of time, and I ended up having to leave because they were not following anything close to the protocol that what we adhere to. And in my opinion, they were just taking their clients' money, going from machine to machine, doing haphazard reps at a 1-1, 2-2 speed, not training anything near to failure, and just, it was a revolving door of cash, and they didn't care. And if I were to open a studio, I would actually care, and I'd want to retain my clients forever and see the monumental change from day one to year 3 or year 4 or year 5. And I ended up just leaving that place and starting off on my own. And right now I have a good clientele list. It comes and goes because a lot of Florida people are snowbirds. So once winter hits, a lot of them come back and I'll be busier. Right now I've got a little bit more free time, but no, I enjoy it. Like I said, I do the free fitness clinics. It's just the problem with high intensity training. If there has to be like a pro or con list, obviously the pros are you're getting astronomical benefit for minimal time with no injury. The con of it is it's almost not believable. Right. And even when I have these free seminars once a month, I can almost guarantee you the questions I'm going to get afterwards in the order that they're going to be asked. And the first question is always, what about cardio? Which you then have to answer, if you like doing it, fine, but you're going to get more cardiovascular benefit out of a 30-minute strength training session than you would doing traditional steady state cardio. And not only are you going to get more of a metabolic effect, you're going to burn more calories after the fact sitting at home because your body recovering from breaking down muscle tissue versus just spending 30 minutes on an elliptical. Right. Is a waste of time. So that's my first question. And the second one, like I said, it's almost not believable because they'll ask me, well, what do you do on those other days? And I say, nothing. But they go, no. But what do you do to get that big on those other days? You got to be like living in here. Okay, you do this 30-minute workout, but then you got to be doing all this other stuff. And they almost don't believe the fact that I'll take 3 days, 4 days after a workout and do nothing except hang out with my wife and walk my dog.
Right.
Because they can't fathom that I got into the shape that I'm in by exercising so infrequently.
Well, it's interesting, and I don't know how much stock I put in it, but according to my Fitbit watch,
back to the Fitbit,
it gives you a rating. It gives you a resting heart rate, and it gives you a rating of your cardiovascular fitness. And so my resting heart rate, depending on the day, is between 58 and 62. Right?
That's good.
Yeah, I think so.
That's excellent.
Particular since at one point in my early 40s, I had a mild heart attack. So my heart rate is higher.
You're doing great then.
So, and the fitness, the cardiovascular fitness score that I have, 35, like the scale goes from 0 to 35, and I'm at between 46 and 50.
Beautiful.
So, well, assuming you can put any stock on what Fitbit calls cardiovascular fitness, right? So take that with however many grains of salt you will. But and I happen to know that I average close to 10,000 steps a day, but not on purpose.
Yeah, you're just active.
Well, I'm training clients. I'm going from machine to machine. and I live on an 8-acre sort of lot here. So if you have 8 acres, well, the work never stops. I have some ducks, believe it or not, that I keep for the eggs and whatnot. So I'm out and about just doing my daily chores and things. So it happens to add up to 8, 9, 10,000 steps a day. But I never say, oh, I haven't got my steps. I'm going for a walk or I'm going for a jog, or I never ever do that. I just do what I do. So I point that out because people would say, well, you must do some cardio. Well, I suppose technically that's probably true, but not on purpose. Do you know what I mean? And then I do probably, because I have all the machines here I'm surrounded by, sometimes I will do a workout more than, every other day or every day sometimes, but I'll do like one exercise. Like I'm still only doing like 16 total sets in a week.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean, you've got your own gym, so you've got an excuse to just throw in a set when you want to. Not many people, have that layer of awesome equipment that you have.
Like today I did chin-ups, dips, and some leg presses, right? That's my big three.
Yeah,
right?
big three. There you go.
And then so I can, on the other days, I can do those other things. But the ironic thing is, what do you do for cardio? Well, nothing on purpose, right? And the main thing is, at 63 years old and 40 years into this, I don't have, knock on wood, I don't have any aches and pains, right? So, and I can't think of anybody who trains other methods that doesn't have, people have come to me and said, well, you have to train around my injuries. I see, are you looking at a clock, your time running out a little bit?
No, my wife was just telling me she was heading out. I just didn't want to, no, okay. we're good. I got more than enough time.
Yeah, all right. So for me, I do have a client coming in not too long. So parting words, what is a message that you would give to either potentially your potential clients, my potential clients, existing clients, things like that? What you passionate about that I think it's really important for people to learn and hear?
Well, I think the other thing that we didn't touch on that's also of utmost importance is the diet. And that is, I tell my clients, that's probably, after 35, 40 years old, that's 80% of it, because you can exercise your butt off. But if you leave and you're consuming mass quantities of alcohol and going to happy hours and eating mozzarella sticks and all this garbage, then 30 minutes isn't going to help you. And I mean, I'm kind of blessed in the fact that I was an intermittent faster before intermittent fasting even became into the mainstream. And I've always just kind of only eaten when I'm hungry. And if I had to, pass any knowledge on to anybody else, I would say that I believe that the human body needs far fewer calories than we're led to believe. And I fast probably at least 18 hours a day. I think I finished eating at 6 p.m. last night. It's 3 p.m. here in Florida time. I haven't had anything to eat other than probably half a gallon of water with some vitamins this morning. And I'm still not hungry.
Right.
Like, some days I'll eat twice. Some days I'll eat once. Very rarely will I eat 3 times, but my diet is probably 85 to 90% meat and vegetables. Okay. Not because I'm purposely paleo, but because I'm involuntarily paleo. Like, I rather have steak, burgers, chicken, and a pile of vegetables any day of the week over a pasta or a bread or any sort of carbohydrate. So I'm blessed in the fact that I only eat when I'm hungry, and I traditionally eat good food anyway.
Right.
A lot of my clients need dietary advice, and, they'll say, well, how many glasses of wine can I have a night? Or what do I do on pasta night or bread night? Like, I don't crave that stuff. Like, I'm fine. I can eat myself sick on steak, chicken, beef, anything like that. So I think the diet is monumentally important.
I do. I've been doing intermittent fasting. I had done it years ago. And then I sort of fell into the trap of, intermittent fasting, you're going to lose muscle. You got to have protein and you got to have it all the time. And then I read Fred Hahn's stuff and how he does intermittent fasting, but takes branched chain amino acids in between. But now I've even come around to thinking, I don't think you even need to do that.
No, I mean, branched chain aminos are in just about, I mean, if you take a protein shake or if you're eating a good enough diet, you're going to get enough branched chain aminos in anything you consume anyway. I mean, if people want to take them for a supplement, it's not going to hurt you, but whatever. Like, I don't take them. I take a multivitamin in the morning. That's about it.
What I like is that with intermittent fasting, I do track what I eat, but with intermittent fasting, I find it incredibly easy to maintain my weight because other than not eating for 16 hours a day, and like yourself, I try to choose good food, and I'm very fortunate. My wife's an amazing cook, and she knows what I like, so I get fresh, cooked meals all the time, and virtually no processed foods.
Yeah, like once you get it, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, once in a while, there might be this week where there was a pizza. There might be some bread and stuff occasionally, but that's the exception rather than the rule.
Yeah, I mean, I'll eat it. I'll have a piece of birthday cake. I like ice cream. I like pizza, but just don't eat it all the time.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's right. If you're good most of the time, you can afford to be bad once in a while. If you're bad all the time, then it becomes the other part. Yeah, and I think nutrition is a lot simpler than most people think. But
it's so easy.
I do find though that a lot of clients are like, just help me get strong, and I'm happy with the weight that I'm at, and I kind of try not to push it on them. I say, well, if you're truly happy, if you're being honest with yourself and you're truly happy, then fair enough. But if you want to lose weight, you're going to have to get serious about it, or it's simply not going to happen.
Yeah, I find that like with myself and with my clients, if you're starting to see good results and you're starting to feel better from the training, your body is going to crave healthier foods. You're not going to want to go home and eat mozzarella sticks or, whatever else people binge on. You're going to start craving lean meats and vegetables because it physically makes you feel better.
Right.
Like I can eat clean for so long. If I were to go to a KFC or a Burger King at this point and get a Whopper and a large fry and a milkshake, I would feel horrible for 2 days. I would feel absolutely terrible.
Yeah, and speaking of misinformation, it is a tangent, probably don't have to go down, but I think this Beyond Meat and all these plant-based.
Oh God, don't touch it. Oh my God. Go watch anything on Mark's Facebook page. He's carnivore. He does a bunch of stuff. Who's the other doctor guy that I follow on Instagram?
Sean Baker?
Yes, Sean's stuff is amazing on that anti-meat stuff, and he shows everything that's processed in it. It's such garbage.
Yeah. Well, I think there's an agenda there that's linked to climate change and all that stuff, and they're just trying to influence people's behavior because the studies that have shown that red meat is bad for you and whatnot are horribly done. And they're really, I mean, it's one of the most nutritious things you can eat. Listen, I have to run for the next, but I'm really grateful for you taking the time to chat. I look forward to spending time on your hit page, the group that I joined recently, and then it's interesting. I had done a podcast earlier with Doug Simmons as well, and I didn't know the two of you were acquainted because I hadn't known Doug for very long. He started getting more active on social media, and that's where I got to know him. So great guy. I had a great podcast with him. So I will wish you the very best. And you're going on a family holiday?
Yeah, it's family vacation in Wisconsin for a week. So like I said, after today, I won't be doing much of anything but relaxing. And then I'll be back on social media in a week. And are you going to post this on YouTube or how does this work?
I am going to do both. So this is going to, hang on a second. So I'm just going to say goodbye and stop recording for a second.
All right.